Welcome. I hope you've all been having a wonderful time at this year's IT Professionals Conference. I'm Ellen Lalazerne, and I'm an IT support technician with DoIT, and I'm a member of the platform committee for this conference. And I'll be moderating this session with the reassuring name of Don't Panic, a guide to cybersecurity incident response and investigation. And please note that we are recording this presentation, and an accessible video will be available for viewing on the IT Professionals Conference website in the coming weeks. Your presenters for this session are Alan Manette and Bridget Bartel, who will now introduce themselves. Take it away, Bridget and Alan.
Thank you, Ellen. And we will move on to the slide that says, we're going to say hello. I'm Alan Manette. I am in limbo between jobs at this time. I was previously the team lead for monitoring and incident response in cybersecurity. As of Monday, I will be the new Associate Director for Cybersecurity Operations, overseeing both the monitoring and incident response team and our testing and cyber defense teams. So hopefully that transition over the weekend will go smoothly and I won't notice anything until Monday. Bridget?
Hi, yeah, I'm Bridget Bartel. So I work for the incident response team. I'm our incident response analyst. I started UW-Madison in 2014 in the DoIT help desk, moved to cybersecurity in 2017, and then started the IR role here in 2020. I actually graduated from UW-Madison with my bachelor's in psychology.
And I've been around forever. I started at the university in 1998 at the help desk, spent a few years there doing various things, got very interested in security. I ended up moving into the security team in 2007, and I've been there ever since, doing a number of things in security, eventually working into incident response and working with Jeff to be the campus's primary forensic investigator. I have a bachelor's degree in history and philosophy of science and technology, which you might think is not terribly related, but I discovered actually is kind of frequently relevant. A lot of what we end up needing to do in information security incident response is communicate effectively and look at what data is actually telling us. And oddly enough, history kind of demands the same thing. We are going to introduce you to one more not real person and one not real department to help guide us through our talk about our incident response process here the rest of our afternoon. Please meet Guinevere Dent. She is the IT director at the Department of Peril Analytics and Statistical Synthesis. The departmental motto is, "But we want to face the peril." Guinevere is the past department that Guinevere is responsible for is a modest size IT shop on campus. Guinevere plus a couple of full-time employees and 2 students run all of IT for the department. They're supporting 25 to 30 faculty and instructional staff and about 10 non-IT administration staff. If you have a pair of peril sensitive sunglasses, you may or not be aware of it, but your peril sensitive sunglasses understand what peril is when you're looking at it because of work and data that the past department does. Guinevere is, unfortunately for her, about to have an extremely bad day. So Guinevere's bad day starts on Wednesday, but mostly Thursday, but really it's Wednesday. Guinevere starts on her Wednesday in the afternoon with a suspicious activity report from the Cybersecurity Operations Center. We say, hey, we think we see some command and control traffic coming out of your network. Okay, kind of annoying, but investigate. It seems to be just one system. It's a classroom audio-visual system that the team can quickly pull out of service and replace with an easy-to-grab off-the-shelf replacement box. They do that. They plan to reimage the machine the next day. As far as they can tell, the problem has been fixed. Until Guinevere comes in on Thursday morning, and she notices right away that her 2 student workstations in the IT group area are looking weird. They have the big blue screen up. Before she can do any real troubleshooting and figure out what's going on, her department chair shows up, just waiting for her to be there in the morning, and says that a bunch of faculty who came in early are also seeing this big blue screen. The big blue screen looks like this. If I can make my slide advance. There we go. The slide likes me now. This is a ransomware note. This is from the Protect Your System Amigo ransomware. And it is on a whole bunch of machines that Guinevere takes a look at. Because the ransomware note says, hey, we got your backups too. She checks her backups. And she almost panics. But then she remembers there's people on campus that can help. So Guinevere finds a machine that is working, and she chats Bridget. And she chats, oh my gosh, Bogon poetry on all my computers. Bridget's very helpful and says, don't panic. Guinevere finds her peril-sensitive sunglasses and does not need to panic. So we're actually going to pause right now. Leave Guinevere stranded at her very bad Thursday, and we're going to go back in time. So I want everyone to grab your favorite time machines. This one's mine. This one's also fun. This one's most excellent. And we're going to talk about something that's a little less exciting than time machines. We're going to talk about the security incident response cycle. Because to talk about what Bridget is going to do next with Guinevere and the PASS department, and how cybersecurity is going to help contain this ransomware event and deal with it successfully, we actually have to step back and talk about preparation, that first green box in the cycle. Long before Guinevere has her bad day, the Office of Cybersecurity is busy doing preparation. And in fact, the university is busy doing preparation. Part of that preparation is that we have an Office of Cybersecurity. The university has invested in actually bringing professionals in. This is our rough structure these days. We have Lois as the CIO, Jeff, who is on the call, is our CISO, and three main chunks of the team: cybersecurity operations, risk management and compliance, and programs and business systems. In the cybersecurity operations part of the team, we have two dedicated teams in that area. Our testing and cyber defense folks, they do our pen testing, handle a lot of our security operational tools, do vulnerability management, and a number of other things. Then we have the monitoring and incident response team. It's pretty much what it says on the tin. We monitor for badness and we do the incident response work. We're the folks that show up that when Guinevere has her bad day. And last but not least, absolutely, is our Cybersecurity Operations Center. They are the part that starts all the monitoring, does the bulk of it. They do alerting. If you've seen a suspicious activity report from the Office of Cybersecurity, that's the SOC that is sending that to you. They generally do initial triage of events that come in and some analysis. And unless, like Guinevere, you end up pinging one of the IR people directly, you were likely to see your thing triaged initially and escalated to the IR team by the Cybersecurity Operations Center. The Operations Center is essentially the most important part of our preparation in some ways. They run daily plays looking for badness in our networks. All of those plays are essentially tailored to where can we see if something bad has happened. And you remember I said, on Wednesday, Guinevere actually got one of the suspicious activity reports. So the SOC saw something before Guinevere had her bad day. They do some of that triage and analysis, as I mentioned, and they monitor for threat intelligence. A lot of what they were also looking for in the SOC is what's going on in the information security world at this point. The SOC is currently 2 full-time staff members, 2 embedded agents from the help desk, and about 12 students to do all that they need to do. We also have prepared by having an incident response team. The IR team has about 40 years of experience on campus between all of the folks that are on it. The core team is myself and Bridget, with Jeff providing all of his guidance and long experience, having been doing this for the campus longer than I think I've been here, which is fairly impressive. Jennifer and Mike come to us from the TCD side of the cyber ops house. We pull them in for TCD related things like how exactly was this server compromised? What vulnerabilities did it have? And they also do some incident response, forensics, and other more standard IR work. Aaron is actually part of the SOC, and he is our newest member of the ad hoc team that we pulled together for incidents. He only recently completed his certifications in forensics and is still getting his feet wet a little bit. And so we are trying to get him a little bit more experience on the team as we go forward. So our IR team, beyond being these individuals, has an IR plan that we follow for events. It's fairly long and detailed. The most important thing that I want to talk about for it at the moment are the roles that we play. This is also, again, part of preparing for an event. We have decided to do incident response as a team event these days. Way back in the dawn of time, Jeff did this solo. All of these roles were one guy. Jeff and I shared them for a while. We're now finding that with the size of the security team and with the types of events we are seeing, teamwork is a much better plan. So we do an incident or investigation coordinator for all investigations. That person basically does a lot of communication, a lot of organizing, and tries to keep the team on track. We have our investigation analyst. In most cases, that is going to be Bridget. That is her role with monitoring an IR team. That's the person that does the actual analysis, collects evidence, and analyzes the evidence, does digital forensics sorts of things to figure out what happened and what needs to be done from there. We will sometimes need a restricted data analyst. We are sometimes faced with a question of what type of data is on this system. People don't always know their own data. Sometimes as we investigate, we find things and say, that's not what we wanted to see. Is there any chance there's more out there that we need to find? Or we might have a case of, well, we think it's HIPAA data, but we're not the experts. We want somebody who actually recognizes that stuff and can be more certain about it to take a look. That's what our restricted data analyst will do for us. Vulnerability management analyst, covered that a little bit. When you're investigating a system and want to know how it was broken into, it can be extremely helpful to have somebody who can look at all the vulnerabilities the system has had over some period of time and go, well, these are certainly ones that you should take a look at, and that one's very bad. You should probably find out if that one was attacked. And finally, a risk management and compliance analyst. We routinely do a recommendations or requirements memorandum out at the end of our investigation process, and I'll talk more about that later. But our risk management and compliance analyst actually comes to us normally from the RMC team and helps us pull that memo together. We do cover events that are varying sizes. We don't always assign every single role for every single event. If it's a relatively small thing and it doesn't really need all of these roles, we might not have a restricted data analyst. If we can be pretty confident there's nothing we need to look at on a system, probably won't assign that. Our investigation analyst and our vulnerability analyst might be the same person for an investigation. Sometimes we write the recommendations memos without pulling in our MC. The event was pretty straightforward. It's all mostly technical controls. Here you go. The IR team can just take care of that and write it for the event. All right, we're going to pause for a second here. And I see there's a couple of chats. Any questions on the preparation part of our phases? Not really hearing anything so far, so we're going to forge ahead so we can actually get done on time. Moving into the detection and analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery phases. This is actually where the real investigation takes place. And we'll move into more of Thursday. Bridget.
Yes, so we're picking back up when I was talking with Guinevere in our slides above. So when I reach out to Guinevere or anyone on campus, we need to get an idea on what the scope of the event is. So one of the first questions that I like to ask or will need to ask is what kind of data is potentially involved, in order to try to understand whether or not there's any campus restricted data or what other type of severity we might need to be looking at for the event. We also need to better understand the actual local IT environment. We are certainly not experts in everyone's environments on campus, and there certainly are a lot of different ways everything can be configured. And we pretty much have one of everything on campus as it is. So that is exciting as well. With this information, then we can go ahead and make a quick assessment of the severity for both UW-Madison severity and the UW system severity. So UW-Madison, we categorize in low, moderate, high, and critical, whereas UW system, they have a different severity ranking of minimal, medium, and critical. Those rankings can be used then to determine how often and what needs to be shared with UW system and when. So with this particular event, we go ahead and identify that the peril sensitive sunglasses, no tongue twisters here, I promise, peril control app and backend database might have UW ID numbers. Now, UW ID numbers used to contain or be based on social security number like 20 some years ago. And from this event, we think that it's possible that some of these might contain that data, which would then fall under that restricted data umbrella that we need to be evaluating. So once I have this information, one of the first things I would do is go ahead and talk to cybersecurity leadership. So that's going to be our CISO, Jeff, and now Alan as our new associate director. And then we also need to go ahead and activate the incident response team to actually investigate the issue at a deeper level than we already have. So to do that, we need to go ahead and assign the IR team members. So as part of this, we go ahead and assign out those roles that Alan was talking about earlier. So usually we have the associate director do the or the team lead do the coordinator role to help make sure all of the right people get involved and leadership gets communicated with at a reasonable pace. And for this, we want a number of investigation analysts or IR analysts. So you have myself, you have Mike, you have Aaron, and then we also have Jen here as our vulnerability analyst. In something like this, we would also want the restricted data analyst, but they're not necessarily as formally on the IR team. We also would pull in the risk management and compliance lead or AD as necessary, and the risk management and compliance analysts. They can also provide some insight earlier on with any previous risk assessments done for the area or for the apps that are potentially impacted here. One of the next things we'll need to do then is create a box folder. We have a number of different notes and templates where we can store evidence, including a daily task list of things that need to be done, who's doing them, and we can see updates then as we're all responsible for updating what we've done and make sure that everyone, no one needs help. You know, that's the other thing. A lot of us are cross-trained and we can certainly jump in as people need to. And we do our best to update all of this both at the start and end of the day as well to make sure everything's been completed. So as we continue on Thursday here, Guinevere and her team will work on the scope and continue to understand what their impact is to operations. And they work with us to figure out an initial containment strategy using the network firewall to quarantine themselves off from the campus network temporarily to make sure that this doesn't continue to spread across campus or to other areas of their department. The IR analysts can start the review of evidence that's already available. We have like Palo Alto, we have Cisco Secure Endpoint or AMP, and due to previous experience, we know that Active Directory servers tend to be a really big target for ransomware, and so we go ahead and take a look at that right away for the past department as well. We see that AMP is installed and it has audit mode. So this meant that we got a lot of good information about what the actors were doing, but it unfortunately didn't stop all of the activity before it completely hit ransomware for some of the servers. So we also see that this is consistent with PISA. They usually go ahead and get domain admin right away and then use the ADs to deliver the ransomware to the affected computers. So this AMP also has a number of nice features that allow us to see where the same activity is across multiple devices that have AMP installed. So we're able to much quicker go ahead and scope how far this event got and can confirm that it is just within the single department. So with that, we go ahead and make sure the CISO knows again, and the CISO and the department chair go ahead and decide not to pay the ransom in this particular event. That is something you'd want to decide pretty early on. And we shut down the Active Directories temporarily just to make sure that nothing continues to spread before we can go ahead and work on our next steps, which will likely be rebuilding them. So at the end of the day, we go ahead and report once again to the CISO, the department chair, the CIO, and UW system. We set that initial severity rating, and that severity rating, though, can change throughout our investigation. If we learn more information that suggests that this was actually across campus or had more restricted data, we may increase the severity rating or potentially even decrease if we learn that, oh, actually, this only did really hit one thing and we didn't see it spread further than we thought. So we also have the option with UW system to potentially engage a managed security service provider with Cisco Talos, but due to the size of the event, we figure we can contain this within our team. So we work then until about midnight with Guinevere and her team, and we do occasionally exchange cell numbers, like in this particular case, in case there is an emergency overnight. I need a sip of water. Okay, so then we move on to the next bit. So we continue with the containment, eradication, and recovery, which if you remember a few slides ago, there was a lovely interacting loop. These things don't happen in a vacuum. They do feed each other as we continue to work through this. So we do the recovery and rebuild work. We continue to check for lateral movement with the new IOCs that we find as we do so. And we also will bring in IAM for assistance with the Active Directory rebuild. They are much more experts than anything we could be in this and are able to really assist departments when we've had incidents that involve having to go to that extreme for the Active Directory. We will have the restricted data analyst review the peril sensitive sunglasses peril control data. They were able to then determine that some of those campus ID numbers did contain the old Social Security number based IDs. They figured about 1,200 in total. The IR analyst, so the three of us, Mike, Jen, and Aaron and myself, so I guess the four of us, because I'm just going to loop Jen in there, even though she was assigned the vulnerability analyst here. It's all good. We collect the forensic images of that server for the investigation, and with knowing that there's potentially restricted data at this point, we also start the clock for the Wisconsin state law, which says that we have 45 days from when we determine that restricted data may be impacted, that we will have to finish and notify. So we continue to use this information, like I said, to scope the event, and we continue to make daily updates to the CISO, the CIO, and then UW system. Other things that we'll do as part of this event is share the intelligence that we're finding with our partners. So we work with the Wisconsin Statewide Intelligence Center. They're able to assist us with reviewing things like the dark web to see if PISA had potentially posted any data that they exfiltrated. So in this particular case, they look for us and don't see any past data showing up on the site. We also will let UW-PD know, but not request assistance in this case. And we can report to the FBI as well, since sometimes they will have additional IOCs for us to look for and can also use that information to help other trusted partners. Okay, so now we are on to the event timeline. So this slide is really meant to kind of give everyone a demonstration of what a very reduced timeline might look like for the team. We will usually have a date and time and events and some additional log information that we go ahead and collect. Timestamps and time zones are super important. Not every system will collect the time information in the same time, so we are often converting between UTC and Central Time. They also are, this is kind of a live and living compilation that we put together during the investigation. So that way we can keep track of what other people are finding and make sure that we can better understand the event as we're going through it. So in this particular example, we see that we determined on April 1st at 42 minutes after midnight, we believe that the cause of the initial break-in, if you will, was a successful RDP login through RDP brute force. So the server that had the jump server that they used had been available to the internet. Anyone could try to log in, and eventually a password was just not strong enough, and they were able to go ahead and make that initial connection. From there, they go ahead and take a few days to do the recon on the past networks and systems before they eventually get into the Active Directory and elevate to get domain privileges. So then they try to move laterally out of the past network. We can see that in some of the logs, but we see that they were ultimately unsuccessful. That's where then you see that first command and control traffic on that Tuesday, if I'm getting my time straight. They started to try to do some sort of data exfiltration. We send the notification on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, we have all that ransomware. So by Thursday afternoon, we're able to go ahead and mostly contain the situation, and before we go ahead and move forward with the rest of the rebuild and cleanup. So then we also have the final data discovery, any sort of other investigation to determine, did they actually exfiltrate anything? What did they see? And then finally put that all into a report for our administrative team leadership meeting, which Alan will end up talking about later. So typically though, a lot of this activity we'll do 5 days for investigations and 5 business days for report writing, but something like this would be pretty complicated. So you may see those timelines be extended a day or two either which way.
All right, I am going to move on to wrapping things up as we are approaching our time limit here. We are now moving to the final box, the blue one for post-incident activity. And that is essentially how we wrap up an event. Once we've finished with the investigation and collected as much evidence and seen what we can about how the attackers actually did what they were trying to do, we need to do several things. We need to report for any large-scale event like this ransomware that Guinevere and the past department experienced. We're going to end up writing up a final report. We have to send system a final report as well. So we tend to do 2 different ones because we have slightly different takes on how to do the reporting. But anything that would be at a system medium severity level, we will have to submit a final report to system. We use the final report as well in the administrative leadership team, or the ALT meeting. An ALT meeting pulls together all the critical leadership that needs to make a decision about this event. It's going to be the CIO, the CISO, the department chair, sometimes the dean of the college will want to be there. We will have a representative from our Office of Legal Affairs. One of the campus attorneys will be present. DeWitt and UW Communications, the IR team, Guinevere and her IT team. It's kind of a cast of thousands. The key thing that the ALT usually is called together to do is decide whether reporting is required by law. Is there a statute that says you have to tell people you lost their data? Wisconsin does have a state statute. It's 13498 that says these are the reasons you would have to tell someone, or something like HIPAA would also say you have to tell people if you've lost their data. And that's what the ALT does. We present the final report to the ALT, explain what we found. In this case, we found how they got in. We understand what they did. We could see that the PISA group did actually try to exfiltrate some user data. We could tell because we could find from a couple of the computers we examined that here are some folders that they copied off. It looks like, though, that they didn't reach the peril-sensitive sunglasses backend data and did not manage to copy any of the SSN-based photo IDs. So that's good. The team will probably decide at that point that notification is not necessary. But that's why we have the whole team come together to discuss that. We also will cover the recommendations or requirements memo in the ALT meeting. That's generally going to be something we have our RMC team help pull together for us for larger incidents. So they can include items from their normal risk assessment checklist, as well as the technical findings that we have. Generally, it goes through, here are a bunch of things you should do at the PASS department, Guinevere and your staff, to improve security and not have this happen again. One of the obvious and easy ones will be restrict access to your RDP server and maybe set some better password requirements for it. But it could also include things like, hey, actually, you didn't remember you had that RDP server. You should probably do some better asset management and understand what you've got running. You should maybe also do a little bit more with change management, so you know when you change things. We also will do some more traditional post-incident review types of things. Generally, the IR team will try to do a brainstorming exercise of some sort that will let us understand what we could change and do better. And I'll move on to our last slide, as we are at time, it looks like. We'll quickly get through this. If you want to face the peril yourself, and you want to know what can you do locally, there's a bunch of the bits here in the NIST guidance that are potentially useful for you as well. Preparation is always key. One of the big things you need to understand is who and how are you going to communicate? We've got on the slide here how to get a hold of us. There's a website that says you call DO-IT. If it's an emergency or if it's after hours, the help desk or the NOC will be able to get a hold of the IR team if it's necessary. For a non-emergency, you're welcome to email us, or you can also try to chat us. That's not the best method of getting a hold of the IR team. It is subject to not here today kinds of problems, but that's another way you can try to reach us. Containment. Think a little bit about what options you have if your network is breached, if a server in your network is breached. What things can you do to contain it? What are you ready to do to contain something like that? Recovery. This is where we talk about backups. Do you have backups? Are your backups stored in ways that if you get ransomware on your backup server, do you still have a copy you can go back to that is not online and has not been encrypted? Post-incident, if you have an incident, are you going to go ahead and pull people together and talk about, this is what we can do to not do this again. This is what we can do to do it better again. That is always helpful for pretty much any IT thing where you need to try to figure out what can we do next. I will also let everyone know that the Cybersecurity IR team does not cover only hacked computers. We talked about that exclusively here, but we will also help out with HR issues. If HR is running into something where they need digital forensics skills to help with their investigation, we help supplement their skill sets and we will provide reports to them. If law enforcement comes knocking on your door, if you get somebody coming to you saying, hi, I'm from the FBI, I would like you to turn over blah, blah, blah to me regarding this IP address that we think is yours, and you're not sure if you should do that, please reach out to the IR team. We do work with law enforcement on a regular basis for that type of activity, and we'll be happy to help you. Any other third-party notices or alerts that you might get, we certainly field a number of them through the SOC. But you see somebody popping up with, hey, I do this bug bounty thing, and I think you've got a vulnerability on your website. If you would like to not respond to that person and would like someone else to, we can handle that for you. Just get a hold of us. And we are over. So, yep. Ellen?
Yeah, thank you very much, Alan. This is the end of our time for this session and the end of the conference. And I'm sure that Alan and Bridget will be happy to answer any of your questions by email. So you know where to find them. And thanks again for attending this year's IT Professionals Conference. And if you'd like to have some in-person time with conference attendees, you can join the IT Professionals Conference Planning Committee for post-conference social at the Terrace from 4:30 to 6:30 this evening. So have a great weekend and hopefully you'll see folks there. And thank you again for attending. This is the end of the session. Bye.